A few moments ago, we affirmed our covenant to seek truth and freedom. To seek truth. It does not say possess truth, to defend truth, or to announce that we have finally found it. To seek implies action. It suggests there may always be something more to learn. That what we understand today may need refinement tomorrow. And seeking truth asks something of us: curiosity, evidence, humility. And sometimes the courage to discover that something we were certain about is not quite certain after all. In a world filled with voices competing for our attention, our certainty, and perhaps the challenge is not to become more certain. Perhaps it is to become seekers, better seekers. That tension between logical, sensible, and certain, and still capable of wonder brings us to our first song. Our first reading is from James Randi, magician, investigator, and longtime advocate of scientific skepticism. A lot of people hate my skepticism, and I think I understand why. The psychics offer wonders and endless possibilities in a world that often seems difficult and mundane. They promise health, wealth, wisdom, eternal life. But if you examine the record, it's not the psychics, but the hard-nosed scientists who have actually delivered the things that improve human life. And to me, science describes a world far more interesting than psychic fantasies. It's a good world, not perfect, but it's ours. So we better learn to live with it the way it is. Our second reading comes from journalist and historian Ann Applebaum, from Twilight of Democracy. In many advanced democracies, there is now no common debate, let alone a common narrative. People have always had different opinions. Now they have different facts. At the same time, in an information sphere without authorities and no trusted sources, there is no easy way to distinguish between conspiracy theories and true stories. False, partisan, and often deliberately misleading narratives now spread in digital wildfires, cascades of falsehood that move too fast for fact checkers to keep up. The noise Applebaum describes is a world in which discernment now has to operate. Many of you may have seen one or both of these photographs circulating online recently of Mitch McConnell. The photograph on the left, released by Senator McConnell's office after he had been hospitalized and out of public view for several weeks. Notice that he's holding a newspaper. Nothing says proof of life quite like today's newspaper. Before long, people online began questioning whether the photograph was real. Some claimed it had been created using artificial intelligence. Others claimed one or both photographs had existed since 2023. Same smiles, same clothes, same glasses, same little logo on the shirt. I found these two pictures in a Facebook post from a friend, whom I'll tell you more about in a moment. But first, I want to conduct a very scientific experiment. And by scientific experiment, I mean I'm going to ask you to clap once to vote. You have 4 choices: left, right, both, or neither. With one clap, who thinks the hospital photograph on the left is AI generated? Who thinks the pool photograph on the right is AI generated? Who thinks both are AI generated? And who thinks neither is? I was hoping nobody would choose neither. If these were independently taken photographs, Mitch McConnell and his wife, Elaine Chao, have achieved a consistency of pose and wardrobe that professional photographers can only dream of. Clearly, these photographs are related. But knowing that does not tell us which one came first. And that is where things get interesting. The story circulating online went something like this. Here's the new hospital photograph, and here is an old photograph from 2023. Look how similar they are. Therefore, the hospital photograph must have been fabricated from the old one. Neat, simple, convincing. There was just one problem. The evidence did not support the story. The person whose Facebook post led me to these photographs is not somebody I would normally question. Quite the opposite. Years ago, I literally trusted this man with my life. He is a forensic scientist. He has testified in court as an expert witness, appeared on true crime television programs as a forensic expert, and authored many books on the subject. This is a smart man, a trained man, a man whose professional life involves evaluating evidence. And when he looked at these photographs, he focused only on the evidence that the hospital photograph might be fake. Under the circumstances, that is understandable. Perhaps he trusted the source of the cocktails photograph in the same way I trusted him. Most of the posted comments also focused on the proof of life photo. But something bothered me. I grew up in the Reagan years, so I trust but verify. It's pretty much burned in my memory. I started examining the hospital photograph, the chair arm, something on McConnell's left wrist, a strange looking spot beneath his right hand, and tiny details on his clothing. I was trying to solve the mystery from the pixels. Eventually, I realized I was asking the wrong question. I was asking which picture looks fake. The better question was, where did these pictures actually come from? That changed the investigation. The hospital photograph was publicly released by McConnell's office. The newspaper was consistent with the date it was released. Independent investigators examined the image, its history, and the file information. They found no evidence that the hospital photograph had been circulating publicly before its release, and no persuasive evidence that it had been generated by AI. The strongest evidence wasn't the healthcare recliner. It wasn't the Kleenex between his hand and the newspaper. It was provenance. Where did the image originate? When did it first appear? We can trace it to an original. Can we trace it to an original source? Do independent sources support the story? That is discernment. And like this example, I like this example because nobody in the story is stupid. Senile maybe, but not stupid. The forensic scientist isn't stupid. My friends on Facebook aren't stupid. No comment on the rest of Facebook. I'm certainly hoping I'm not stupid. And none of you who voted are stupid. Although there is a recording. The lesson is not, look how gullible those people were. The lesson is, look how quickly all of us can construct reasonable stories from incomplete information. We have never had more incomplete information arriving with complete confidence. Headlines, advertisements, memes, algorithms, influencers, podcast blowhards, self-appointed experts, and those people who watched 11 minutes of a YouTube video and are now prepared to explain epidemiology. We have more access to information than any generation in history. But information is not knowledge, and knowledge is not wisdom. Wisdom requires deciding what deserves our confidence. In Why People Believe Weird Things, Michael Shermer has this unsettling observation. Smart people believe weird things because they are skilled at defending beliefs they already arrived at for non-smart reasons. He's saying intelligence can actually make us better at defending ourselves from contrary evidence. We have more facts, convincing arguments. Excuse me for a second. A better vocabulary. Our intelligence can become a very expensive defense attorney for whatever we already want to believe. Evidence we like gets waved through our BS detectors. Evidence we don't like gets strip searched. If a story confirms what we believe, we will repost it with the caption, "Everyone needs to see this." When research contradicts us, we comment, "Who funded that study?" Suddenly, we're giving armchair peer reviews. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. That was by Richard Feynman, by the way. And Tim Minchin advised, be hard on your opinions, be intellectually rigorous, identify your biases, your prejudices, your privileges. Be hard on your opinion. Put it under pressure. Ask what would make it fail. Ask what evidence contradicts it, and get comfortable occasionally saying, "I don't know yet." Here are 4 questions to ask yourself when evaluating a claim. First, what exactly is the claim? Not the headline or the emotion. What is actually being claimed? The poolside photograph is from 2023, so the other one must be AI, right? Second, what is the strongest evidence for it? If someone gives you 10 arguments at once, ask which one they think is strongest. Adding 9 questionable Facebook posts to 1 questionable Facebook post does not suddenly produce a peer-reviewed paper. Maybe they respond, the hospital photo has all the same details as the pool photo. Third, can your information be traced back to its original source? Can the weekend at Mitch's photo be traced to a source from 2023? And fourth, what would change my mind? If the answer is nothing, your belief may become something more than a conclusion. It may become an identity, possibly even a team jersey. Would a series of hospital photos released days later sway you? Long before Facebook, cable news, or artificial intelligence, Jules Verne wrote, "Assert the most absurd nonsense, call it scientific truth, and back it up with strange words which sound as if they had a meaning, but in reality have none. And 9 out of 10 men will believe you. Acquire a remarkable name in one branch of human knowledge, and presto, you are infallible in all." First, you must understand your subject. Real argument, in fact, is very difficult. First, you must understand your subject well, which is hardly likely. Second, your opponent must also understand it well, which is even less likely. Thirdly, you must listen patiently to his arguments, which is still less likely. And fourthly, he must listen to yours, the least likely of all. Apparently, social media did not invent people confidently arguing about things they don't understand. It merely gave them wider distribution. But some recent research gives us reason for optimism. And strangely enough, some of it involves artificial intelligence. AI may become one of the greatest producers of noise humanity has ever invented. Fake photographs, fake voices, fake videos, fake quotations, fake news, fake experts, and probably before long, fake partners who remember your anniversary more reliable than your real partner. But research has allowed people who held conspiracy beliefs to have short, personalized conversations with AI. These participants began with strong conspiratorial beliefs. They were asked to explain not only what they believed, but why. The AI responded to their particular evidence and reasoning. More than half lowered their belief at least somewhat. Then researchers asked why. Was the AI unusually persuasive? Was it manipulating them? Or was it simply overwhelming them until they finally thought, fine, the moon landing happened, please stop typing. One result stood out. Evidence mattered. When the AI provided facts and evidence without being instructed to persuade, it remained effective. When it tried to persuade without factual counter-evidence, most of the effect disappeared. The researchers wrote, conspiracy beliefs can be changed with evidence, assuming evidence is thorough, detailed, and bears on a person's own claims. Bears on a person's own claims. Maybe people aren't immune to evidence as much as we think. Maybe sometimes we're simply answering to wrong arguments. We arrive with our favorite facts, they arrive with theirs. We repeat ours, they repeat theirs. Everyone goes home convinced the other one is irrational. AI may help us identify what factual claim does this disagreement actually depend on. What is the best evidence? What would address the reason this particular person believes it? And AI might help before the conversation even begins. You can prompt it with, give me the strongest reasonable version of their position. What evidence would count against my position? Or rewrite what I say so it sounds curious rather than condescending. That last one may save several family holidays. But AI can also be spectacularly wrong. Spectacularly wrong and beautifully written complete sentences. Use it as a research assistant. Ask for sources, check them. Ask it to challenge you rather than merely confirm you. Because if all we ask AI to do is prove us right, we have invented the most sophisticated yes man in history. But the AI study leaves an important question. A computer can patiently examine someone's claims without getting offended, rolling its eyes, or worrying about winning. Human beings are more complicated. What happens when we actually have strong evidence that someone is wrong and we want them to hear it? Julia Minson at Harvard Kennedy School studies exactly this problem. She defines receptiveness as a person's tendency to thoughtfully engage with opposing views. Suppose you've done that. You've listened, you've checked, you've traced the source. The evidence is strong, but someone you care about still believes something that simply isn't supported by the facts. Now what? Our instinct is usually, you're wrong. And then we unload the evidence, confidently expecting that around the fact number 4, the other person will say, you know what, you're right. Thank you for correcting me. Now, if that happens regularly to any of you, come see me after the service because I'd like to study your approach. Because once people feel attacked, they often stop evaluating the evidence and start defending themselves. So perhaps the first task isn't presenting the evidence. It's creating a conversation in which the evidence can actually get a hearing. Minson's work gives us 4 practical ideas. Find common ground. Ask what convinced them. Show that you heard them. Then offer the evidence that matters. First, find common ground. Minson describes this as taking a second to find something that we as 2 thoughtful humans can disagree on. We both want accurate information. We both want our families to be safe. We both hate being manipulated. Or simply, I think both of us would rather know what really happened. That doesn't mean pretending we agree. It means remembering that the person across from us is not the misinformation. They're a person who encountered it. Second, ask what convinced them, and then listen. Minson says people have better conversations when they explicitly state their desire to learn about their counterpart. So instead of, where on earth did you get that? Try, I'd really like to understand what convinced you. Same general question, very different evening. Remember to ask, what do you think is the strongest evidence for it? Now we're back to the AR research. If evidence works best when it bears on a person's own claim, first we have to understand that claim. Third, show that you heard them. So if I understand you, this photograph convinced you because you were told it had been online since 2023. Acknowledgement is not agreement. It simply demonstrates that you understood the argument and before trying to answer it. Fourth, offer the strongest evidence that actually addresses what they said. not 27 links, and preferably not a PowerPoint presentation entitled Why You're Wrong. With that photograph, I wondered the same thing, so I tried to find a supposed 2023 version. Here's what I found. Notice the difference? Not, you fell for fake news, but I checked it, and here's what I found. Now we're looking at the evidence together. And one more thing, give people somewhere to gracefully go. Change your mind in front of another person can feel like losing. So say, I can see why that looked convincing. I thought it might be true at first too. There is a lot of bad information circulating. You don't need the sentence, I was right and you were wrong. If somebody leaves the conversation thinking more accurately, the truth doesn't care who got credit. And here's perhaps the most encouraging part of Minson's research. One of the things we've learned in our research is that conversational receptiveness tends to be contagious. They trained one participant to communicate more receptively. The other person didn't know. There was concern that being receptive would simply make the other person more aggressive. Instead, Minson says, if I am more receptive, it actually doesn't make my counterpart more aggressive. It makes him more receptive. Think about that. If I want you to become curious about my evidence, one of the best things I can do may be to become genuinely curious about you. Not receptive to the false claim, receptive to the person. There is a difference. And this isn't just being nice, it's practical. If you'd like to find out how receptive you actually are, Minson and her colleagues have a survey at receptiveness.net. If you take the survey, answer honestly, not as the unusually patient and enlightened version of yourself who appears whenever you fill out psychological questionnaires. So maybe living wisely amid all this noise is not simply a matter of learning to detect bad information. Sometimes it means helping another person find their way out of it. And that takes more than having facts. We need to know which facts matter. We need curiosity before correction. We need enough patience to understand why another person found something convincing, and enough compassion to give them room to reconsider without humiliating them for having believed it. There will always be another headline, another photograph, another rumor from somebody we trust, another story that happens to confirm exactly what we already suspected. We probably cannot make the world quieter, but we can decide what kind of voice we add to the noise. We can be the voice that asks, where did that come from? What convinced you? Can we look at the evidence together? We can disagree without turning one another into enemies. We can correct without humiliating. We can listen without surrendering our judgment. And maybe sometimes we can help one another find our way towards what is true. Not by shining the light in someone's eyes, but by holding it where both of us can see. Perhaps that is enough light to help us find our way through the noise. As we leave this time together, may we carry the light of truth carefully, not as a blinding spotlight in our neighbor's eyes, but as a lamp by which we can see our own path, and perhaps help illuminate the paths we share with others. May curiosity keep that light burning. May humility keep it honest. May compassion remind us that those with whom we disagree are people before they are opinions. May we question before we condemn. Listen before we answer. Seek common ground before we draw battle lines. And when we have something true and important to share, may we offer it in a way that gives truth the best chance to be heard. The world will give us plenty of noise, and may we carry a little light. Please join me in saying our community promise as we extinguish our chalices. We extinguish these flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of commitment, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, return in love.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.